So thank you very much. It's great for me to be here. I think this is my first time in Prague, so I'm very excited. So I'm the Director of Ecosystem at the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. And today I want to talk about these three things. So why is cloud native being adopted and how? What are the challenges that people face as they adopt cloud native? And then what tools are people using to overcome them? So a little bit about me. I started out as a software engineer at Google. So I was building Google Maps using C++ and then deploying it using Borg. And Borg later inspired Kubernetes. So when I left Google in 2015, containers and Kubernetes was just about coming up. So it was very natural and easy for me to switch from doing it myself to advocating for everybody else to also adopt this kind of infrastructure. So I became a developer advocate. I started doing a lot of public speaking. I started the Cloud Native London meetup group and got more into the community open source focus. And then now at CNCF, my mission is to drive the adoption of Kubernetes and cloud native. So mostly I work with end user organizations and help them with their developer relations strategy and getting engaged with open source. Oh, and you can find me on Twitter at @oicheryl. So if you haven't heard of CNCF, we're a non-profit. It's mostly famous for hosting Kubernetes, of course, but we actually have more than 40 projects in total now. And we're supported by pretty much all the large cloud vendors. So effectively, we take money from these people and we give it to these projects. That's what we do. Oh, thank you. So as a basis for this, I'm going to use the CNCF survey. So we run this survey every 6 months to 1 year to get an idea of where different organizations are going and what are people using. So this data was collected in September and October of last year, and we actually haven't published these numbers yet. So this is an early preview for all of you. We're going to be publishing it very soon, so we'll have a lot more information publicly, but this is just the early numbers. So the survey had 1,337 responses, and the top industries were software, technology, finance, consulting and telecoms, and just over 50% were from large companies. So that's medium to large companies, so 500 or more employees. Okay. So I'm going to try an experiment because I don't just want to give you numbers. In fact, I want to hear about you. So if you have a phone handy, please go to this URL, and we're going to do live polling here. And I'm going to ask 3 questions about you, and then 5 questions about how you use Cloud Native, and we'll see if Prague is similar or not similar to the rest of the community. Also, this is an experiment. This is the first time that I've tried running this live polling. So I'm on the free trial, which means I get 25 responses. So 25 people in this room should be able to register on this link. And if you lose this link, then this is just a direct redirect to a service called Poll Everywhere. So that will display the longer URL. Okay, so load this up, put your name in. And let's start with an easy one. Is this your first time at Cloud Native Prague? So you should see a yes and a no, and there we go. Cool. Oh, poll is full, no longer accepting responses. So we hit 25 people already. It's pretty sweet. So 60% of people are recurring, 40% of people are new. So welcome. It's always exciting for this to be your first Cloud Native Prague meetup. Second question, what's your job? So you've got application developer, backend developer, manager, ops, security, or software architect, or anything else. Oh, we're full again, so looks like about a third backend developers, Quite a lot of others. So anyone who said other, do you want to shout out what you do? What's your job title?
Is it possible option that between two backend developer and software architect, for example?
Two, but divided by? Wait, say that again?
For example, I have duties of both software architect and backend developer, for example.
Sorry, I only set this up so you choose one answer.
Just one.
Yeah. Any others?
CDN engineer.
CD engineer?
CDN.
Oh, CDN
Content
engineer.
design.
Okay. Third question, how big is your organization? So this is global number of employees. Okay, interesting, bimodal distribution. So let's see, this is 12, 36. So actually quite similar to the CNCF survey. I'd say like half is in large 500 or more companies, 500 or more employees, and then half less than that. Okay, so you can take a break for a moment. So let's talk about why and how people use containers. So you're probably not surprised to find out that containers are actually quite mainstream. So 84% of people said that they use containers in production, and a large number also said they run at least 20 machines in their fleet. And what we see over time, these are results from past surveys as well, is that people run more and more containers. So the sort of left side of the graph is going down, and the right side is going up as people move to running more and more containers in production. Also, probably not surprised to find out that Kubernetes is pretty mainstream, but we really saw an uptick from last year to this year. Sorry, I should say 2018 to 2019. So 58% said they ran it in production in 2018, and 78% ran it last year. And the majority of those, more than 60%, are on public cloud. And the most popular services that people use are EKS and GKE, perhaps not surprisingly, followed by the Docker projects, AKS, and kubeadm and kops, and ones for running it maybe on-prem. Okay, let's see how Prague is looking. So if you can get into the poll, then please tell me how many containers are you running in production. Also, I would be very interested to hear if you find any of these numbers surprising or if they line up with what you expect. Cool. So 50 to 249 looks like the biggest answer. Few people running more than 5,000 containers. Anybody who's running more than 5,000 containers want to comment or say? Where do you work?
No, I have several customers, so if I sum up, there will be much more than 5,000.
So you're like consultant?
Yeah, let's say consulting engineer.
Cool. Okay, awesome. So again, how many clusters do you run? And this is just production clusters. So if you're just evaluating, then it doesn't count.
And where is the guy who runs more than 5,000?
Yeah, how many clusters do you run?
It's less than 50.
Less than 50?
Yeah. So it's 20.
Cool. So these were that same question asked across the 1,300 people. So Actually, a significant, well, more than 10% are running 50 or more clusters. The majority is still running in the sort of 1 to 10 clusters range, but this follows the same pattern as containers. So over time, companies run fewer single or like 2 clusters and more large numbers of clusters. Okay, perhaps the most important question. So why do you use cloud native? So this one is different to the other ones. This is like a Reddit upvote, downvote. So you can choose as many as you see. Or as many apply to you. I think I need to pay for the full service, don't I? I think there's probably more demand to answer. Oh, I see a couple of downvotes here for cost savings and cloud portability. So before I show you what the wider answers were, does anyone want to comment on anything that they've seen? Like why is cloud portability a negative, for instance? Someone who downvoted cloud portability. No one willing to admit to it? Okay, how about a positive example? Anyone seen faster deployments or?
Improve developer productivity. When developer joins a new company, I want you to set up environment, Redis, Postgres, Kafka, whatever. I just run Docker Compose up or Kubernetes up, and then I get all stuff running on my dev machine. So it's very easy. Or I can get some dev environment where I can deploy the environment for developing. So it's really, really fast. And then it's moving from develop to staging to production. It's also quite seamless process.
Right, because you can just move stuff from dev to test to prod without making too many changes, right?
Yeah. Especially there is an article 12-factor apps, and it explains how it can be done in it.
Yeah. In my previous job, I was working at a storage company, and they asked me, okay, how does Google manage storage? Because containers are stateless, and therefore storage is a problem for us. And I said, actually, I have no idea, because the infrastructure was so well abstracted away from me, I never had to care about the details of how it runs or how it works. So from my view, as a software engineer, as an application developer using these platforms, I could forget all of that, and it was great. It was a great experience. Anybody else want to comment on something that they've seen or used?
Well, okay, I can talk about why I downvoted cloud portability.
Oh, you downvoted cloud portability?
Yeah,
cool.
I did that because there is often this promise, like in case of ORM mapping frameworks, right, that you can change your database underneath of your application code, and it never works in practice. I think in the end, no one will ever move with their clusters once they are entrenched in the environment they lived in. And I upvoted improve developer productivity because that's the good thing, because there is this shared vocabulary in the industry, and it's not that different companies have the same things that are calling by different names, and that's the productivity booster for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is anyone actually, or has anyone moved from one cloud to another? Has anyone tried to move? Oh, do you want to say?
AWS to GCP.
You moved.
AWS to GCP.
How was that experience?
Painful.
Painful.
80% was like kind of fine, then the rest of 20% is pain. And it was from self-orchestrated containers with Ranger to GK.
Okay, but
And
yeah.
that's why I also downvoted cost savings, because we pay more for the improved scalability and faster deployment and improved availability in the end.
But do you think it's worth the
In our
cost,
case,
the
yes.
increased cost?
Because the downtime and when we are not able to scale, when we have the demand of customers, then it's much more money than we are paying for the infrastructure.
Mm. Mm. Anybody else want to comment?
Or just for the portability, there is an aspect that if you are a huge company, like huge enterprise, then even though maybe it's not that easy to port from AWS to GCP or vice versa, Azure, the lever that you have when you negotiate this Amazon or you negotiate the GCP, that's something that that really gives you a huge advantage. So the portability, maybe it's a myth, but it's a good base for the business people that they can negotiate.
Yeah, I've definitely heard the same, that you can sell to certain people like, oh, we'll be able to move from cloud to cloud, but no one ever does it. Like, I think that's not strictly true. I mean, you can clearly move, but it requires a lot of effort, and it requires a lot of the times we build onto certain services, and then those are the ones that are hard to move.
Yeah, but still relatively easier than migration.
Maybe I'm missing one thing here. Like, I use Cloud Native because there's a big community behind it.
Because it's close.
Oh, thanks.
I can put it on my CV.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like all of these are the sort of reasons that you'll find. If you search for why use Cloud Native, you'll find these things in a blog post. But actually the two reasons that people use it are because it works, which is not to be underestimated, and then because it has this great community of people around it. So, you can move from company to company, there's all these meetups like today. People are just very welcoming and very nice. So, it kind of attracts the flow. So I agree with you, obviously, since this is what I do every day. Any more?
Probably one thing that is missing here is kind of simplicity in security management. That probably would be kind of downvoted, I think, because of kind of history with all those open Kubernetes clusters, with all that mining software running there, just kind of probably somewhat reputation built on that, that is only overcoming now, maybe.
So hold on to that thought, because I have a question about what are the challenges that you face. So you can downvote all you like on that one. So not the answer, but this is what other people said. That same actually as here. So the top reason was faster deployments and then fast and improved scalability. Developer productivity was a little bit lower, and cost savings was not as important. And on the faster deployment part, so that means we can release daily or weekly, and that we can automate more of the release cycles. So the fully automated one didn't really change from 2018 to 2019, but fewer people are doing completely manual releases and more doing hybrid, so automating parts of what they're doing. Onto the challenges. Here we go. This is downvote time. So what are the challenges that you faced when running Cloud Native? Okay, this is really interesting. So lots of people saying complexity. Someone want to comment on why they find it complex?
Well, there's always something new coming out, and you have to keep track of all of the new trends. And every time you try to deploy something or to solve an issue, every day you find a new solution, basically. So it's rather complex to find what is the most stable and good solution for a problem.
How do you actually try to find that information? Google. But like, do you read blogs? Do you look at Twitter? Like,
All of them. Yeah.
All of them. Come to meetups, clearly.
And also, the more you, so there's a lot of complexity hidden, which only comes out when once you run into issues. So, like in Kubernetes, if you deploy a single application, it's fine. But then you deploy more of them, and they come, and then you run up against the wall with requests and limits, and sometimes everything crashes, and you need to go into the nitty-gritty details, and that's where the complexity explodes, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So it looks easy on the surface, but once you encounter any issues, it's rather complex.
Yeah. I also ran into the same problem with Borg. There was a saying at Google that like it takes 6 months to run one application and then like 10 minutes to run the next 1,000, because the initial setup, the initial learning curve is so high. But then once you've got one up and running, it's pretty easy to just change how many replicas you want of it. Someone wants to comment about cultural changes.
There is like, for us, it was the easy thing, like, I'm developer, I write the code, I don't care about resources, I don't need to know what is memory, what is CPU, I don't care. Like, how many replicas do I need? I don't know, just put there some numbers. Yeah. I don't care about the cost, my application is running, even though it's serving, let's say, 10 requests per second, I can run 50 containers, and okay, why not? It will work.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like quite big challenge, and the biggest challenge was with the like junior developers. The seniors were keen to learn new things. They understand what is memory and why they need their limited requests, but for the juniors it was painful.
So how did you help the junior developers to understand?
Trainings, support, consultation inside the company.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely guilty of the same. I'm like, how much memory do you need? Enough. Just give me twice as much as I need. Like, it's free, right?
Yeah. And then you say the bill.
Yeah,
When
somebody
we
sees the
show
bill.
developers the bill for their clusters, they was like, really?
Well, say again?
So you should never show the bill.
You should never show the bill. Probably the business people will be unhappy if that's the case.
We show it to developers because the leaders then understand, okay, if I will run just only on half of the CPUs, I can hire 2 more developers.
So do you show individual developers how much they're spending, or like a team?
It's open inside the company. Everyone can see our spend in the cloud.
But I mean, like, what's the granularity? Like, is it per team, per
namespace.
developer, per namespace? Okay. And how? So you're dividing teams by namespace, or applications, or
we
what?
have cluster per team, 1 sandbox, 1 production, and they see the cost. Like
Okay.
production in sandbox, everything. Basically, we have, let's say, service per namespace. Then they can easily see what the service costs.
It's cool. Yeah, it'd be. I know this is a really hot topic with the companies that I talk to, so it'd be very interesting to hear about how you expose that. What else is interesting? Lots of downvotes for auto scaling. So auto scaling is not too much of a problem. No, I think there's enough good tools like vertical and horizontal pod auto scaling for that. CI/CD, also not a problem.
Yeah,
Or-
a lot of the problem. Actually,
Yeah.
I still can't find like a great solution. Some of them which we have, it's really like complex to support and so on. Usually, it's exactly like high cost of support. These tools, like this, like, how it's named. I forget it. Actually, like snapping, not the snapping. It's like really, I mean about the continuous delivery. Yeah. For continuous integration, it's okay, nothing problem. But continuous delivery, to cover all this red, blue, and so on, it's really complex.
So which tools did you try that you thought were too complex or didn't work?
So far, we have only like we using only Helm, and it's like Bamboo with Helm together for it's like really like not so great solution, but so far it's okay for us. I mean, at least for like development, developing the staging.
So somebody who downvoted CI/CD, who said it's not a problem, what tool do you use? Just to help, sort of maybe a suggestion for an alternative.
So basically in our company, for example, we are using Tekton and the Tekton pipelines. And our Kubernetes clusters are also managed by the Argo CD, so it's a deployment tool for the Kubernetes. So Tekton, in short, it's something like Jenkins, but not 20 years ago written, but it's modern Jenkins for the Kubernetes. Also, Jenkins X is something similar, which is using the Tekton pipelines as well. So that may be a way.
We just try to try this snapper, like a snapper. Forget the name actually. And I saw the solution about the code fresh Kubernetes, but it's not open source. Okay, but again, it's a little bit hard to support. Have to be some person to do it, configure it, and so on. So
it's definitely complicated. That's for sure.
It's not like a Helm chart and that's it. You faster like develop it and go in live.
Cool. Okay, so the top 3 answers that we had, the top 3 challenges: complexity, cultural changes, and security. And these actually are the same 3 that the wider survey reported, although in a slightly different order. The cultural changes was first, and then security, and then complexity. So down at the other end was finding vendor support. I think there's enough vendors supporting it nowadays that that's not a challenge. So now I'm going to talk about a couple of the pieces in here. Again, you can relax on the polling for a moment. So monitoring, logging, and tracing. So when we asked people, we found that people prefer to run these on-prem over using a managed service or a remote service. And we've also seen that tracing is much less popular than monitoring or logging. Like nearly everybody has monitoring and logging, but 23% of people said that they don't use tracing. Service meshes. So 20% of respondents said that they were running it in production, and a very large number were evaluating. I think this lines up with what I've seen as well. There are a lot of companies who've trialed Istio or one of the other solutions and have decided not to run it in production for whatever reason. So storage. Storage is close to my heart because my previous job was in storage. Since containers were designed to be stateless, there are far fewer people who are using storage in production and evaluating. And the top ones that people said that they were using were just those provided from their cloud provider. So Amazon EBS, Google Persistent Disk, and the Azure equivalents. So this is probably still quite early. Okay, final question for the polling people. So this one you can vote on as many as you like, up to, I think, the limit of 25. Okay, we've already run into the limit. Next time, I'm going to pay for this full service, I think. So 10 people said they use Prometheus. Quite a few, well, I don't know. The people who said they use Core DNS, are you using it, I guess, within the context of Kubernetes, right? Because Core DNS is part of Kubernetes now. I'm interested in the WAS3. I was going to say, I've never seen so many people use Vitess in production. Those 3 people who just removed their clicks, was that because you...
I pressed by accident,
I
wanted to remove, I pressed again, and there was 2 times, and I pressed 5 times more.
Okay, it was all you. All right, mystery solved. Okay, I was going to say, because again, this is my storage bias showing, but I really think VTest is cool as a project, and it doesn't have nearly as much adoption as everything else here. But I think this is pretty clear that Prometheus is pretty widely used. So, about 2 minutes to go. So, a couple of takeaways for you. Cloud native is really mainstream. We see more people running more containers, more machines, more clusters. People are seeing the faster deployment times, and auto scaling is pretty easy. And then the top challenges that people face are the cultural, working with the developer teams, and the security and the complexity. If you want to learn more, and actually I should have asked this one more, anybody coming to KubeCon in Amsterdam in 1 month's time? Okay, a couple of people. So if you want to come, then here's a code you can use to get 15% off a ticket. This is a project that I'm working on at the moment, but I'm running a conference in London called Kubernetes Community Days London. It's going to be like a meetup, but 1,200 people, hopefully. Cool, I think I am out of time. So thank you very much, and thank you for using my polls.